My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey, Atlanta, Apple is open for small business. That's right. We're here to make starting and running your business simpler. With privacy and security built in on all devices, it's easy for you to protect your customers' data. And if you need hardware or software support, you'll get advice from business experts at no cost whatsoever. So you can focus more on the soup du jour and less on, the other stuff. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/small business or visit an Apple store to learn more.
Hey, Chicago. What do you say? Cubs gonna win today.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise Podcast. It's time for the Cubs Podcast with Oleg and Praz. And once again, I realized it's been like 2 weeks. Praz, tell people where else they can consume you. That sounds good.
Thank you for that setup, Andy. Yeah, if you want to consume me, slide my Twitter DMs at Prazmaster. Also, if you want to consume other podcasts I'm a part of, I'll be with Andy again this fall on the Bears podcast he's doing. We'll be with him again tomorrow night on the Hard Knocks podcast we're doing. But also I do have another Cubs podcast I do, Bums in the Bleachers, through the fine folks at Chicago Sports Bums. Again, they're mainly a White Sox site, but they reached out to me last season to try to expand their coverage. And myself, John Oliva, we try to do it once a week, but sometimes our schedules conflict a little bit. Reason I'm on with Andy tonight is actually because he was not available to record tonight as well. So we'll more likely be back on next either Monday or Tuesday night on the Chicago Sports Bums YouTube page.
And Oleg, you want to give your grinder handle or anything? No? I mean,
I like Praz's slight undercut there where he goes, well, in case you want to listen to the other podcast instead, you can't.
Yeah, that's right. You can't. Tough shit. We're not doing it this week.
Yeah, no, this is the only thing I got. This is it. Andy, you're it, man.
Well, we're glad to have you. And we talk about the excitement that is the continued excitement of the 2024 Cubs, who every time they start to show a little signs of something. Managed to remind us that they're not that good. They did win 3 of 4 against the Cardinals on over the weekend, which is good because it puts a dent in the fact that the Cardinals are in the playoff race is just ridiculous. That's not a good baseball team at all.
That seriously was a team that I think most of us kind of had left for dead when we were doing our season predictions too. And like, you know, you looked at how they built their roster up. They had like Brandon Crawford, Matt Carpenter. They signed a bunch of old guys to their roster. Lance Lynn, you know, Sonny Gray still was projected to be good, but getting up there. Yeah, I mean the Cardinals are clearly a team that, you know, if everything had gone as the way we planned, the Cubs should be better than this season.
Well, we didn't know at the time they were going to bring Tommy Pham back.
This is true.
Right.
Known
That's
that.
the big deal.
That would have a third place of it.
Some of us did pick the Pirates to finish ahead of the Cardinals. Also, ahead of the Brewers, so we see how well that's going. But
6 games.
Some of us picked the Brewers to finish last in the division.
Yeah.
I won't look around the room here.
Yeah, the Cardinals have, not to go all 2023 boo Shambi, but you know, they have a run differential of -48, by far the worst in the division. So they are overperforming their record by 6 wins.
Clearly, that must mean that Ali Marmol is a great manager for them.
Well, it is funny because it's kind of screwing up. You know, Skip Schumacher wants to be the Cardinal manager really, really bad. And he's going, this is it for him in Miami. Like, he's either going to get fired or he's going to quit. It's just a matter. And Ali is not, cooperating.
Yeah.
Well, he got a contract extension this year. Marmol did. So.
Yeah. Well, he's trying to cooperate, but Cubs infielders and outfielders catching fly balls is doing him in.
Yeah.
Trying to catch fly balls.
How hard is it to just get out of Pete's way? Really? Just let him.
I kind of side with Nico there. I think that was Nico's ball, to be honest with you.
I think every ball was Pete's ball. That was my
fair.
Let him have everything.
Fair assessment.
Who else? We saw what happened. He tried to let Talkman catch one last night, and Mike ended up face down on the warning track. You want this one? Oh, shit.
That play was ridiculously hilarious. Like it was like I laughed out loud when that happened. It was
which one? The one last night or the Nico?
Yeah, last night. When
Pete couldn't find it, and Talkman and somehow fell literally on his face in the outfield.
I mean, literally, the first thing I thought of, I tweeted at you, was that Marcell Ozuna catch.
Yeah. The infamous. He climbed the wall, then realized the ball wasn't going to get all the way to the wall, and then drove forward, and the ball hit him in the ass.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, Talkman did he was backing up the play.
Yeah.
So when he had to come in for it, it wasn't because he misjudged the ball; it was because he was backing up. But still.
Well, at least they can amuse us. I think the happiest person in the park was Seiya. He's like, "See, assholes, it's not that fucking easy out there."
Yeah. It's not just me dropping balls out here, guys.
Leave me alone.
I like Seiya too much to make fun of him.
It doesn't mean making fun of him.
Yeah, a little bit.
In my mind, Seiya and I were enjoying a fun laugh at Mike Talkman's expense.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah. Well, that's what we should do. Let's go down the list of the Cubs. Do we like them or not? do we personally like them? Let's go. Ian Happ. No. Seiya Suzuki. Yes.
Absolutely.
Shota. Yes. All right. That's Pete Crow. Yes. I might have run out of yeses.
Yes.
Michael Bush. Yes. If we're really doing this, but
we usually have 2 weeks of material.
Yeah, this is tough. You guys are doing it back to back because I allowed Dave Brown to go on vacation to Maine.
And we're out of material 6 minutes in.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right, so why don't we do this? Why don't we let's just stall for a few minutes and then we'll watch Hard Knocks live.
Oh,
there we go. Perfect.
While it's on.
Exactly.
It's on one of those on-demand things, right? Like I haven't gotten Max yet, and I know it starts tonight.
Yeah.
Like I can watch it. All right.
Oh, yes. Do I got to give you my login now, Oleg? Am I that guy now?
Let's all share one. Let's just announce it to the listeners. Let's all share one. It'll be fine.
No, I'll just get it. They got to have a free trial, right?
Not when I looked. and I just signed up a couple days ago.
Yeah, whatever.
Having a good time enjoying The Sopranos, though. Did not watch that when it was out.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who has never seen Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, or The Wire, which I find a little bonkers.
Yeah.
Dang.
Now, why not? So this podcast, we'll talk about whatever we want. So I didn't watch Breaking Bad the first season.
Okay.
But I was a lady at work who was half nuts. Kept going on and on about how great it was.
Yeah.
And it was not a show. And once I started watching it, I'm like, Carol was watching this? But she was talking about how great it was, but she got hung up on trying to explain to me Walter White in his underwear in the RV at the very, I couldn't understand what the hell she was talking about. And I'm like, I'm not watching this show. I can tell you that right now. If Carol is getting off on the dad from Malcolm in the Middle running around in his underwear in the desert trying to make meth, I'm not going to watch it. And but finally I watched it. Oh, I know what happened. This was the good old days before, like, I mean, I had DirecTV, and you didn't really have on demand that early. But what they started doing was they were replaying them back to back, like late at night. And I was just setting the old TiVo or whatever it was, and I would just plow through two. After the first two, I was like, "This is a great show," and I started watching them. But I almost was scared off by a crazy lady at work who was trying to explain the plot to me.
Yeah, the first 2 or 3 episodes are just kind of, you just have to get through them.
Yeah,
because they set up everything, like that's all the backstory, so it's all good.
Yeah,
I watched all of it in less than a month while I was living in Denver and I was out of work. And the last season, which is like 16 episodes, I watched them all like back to back. Like my
because they actually released those. We got them live. You got them in halves. They did 8 and 8.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was a big break for the rest of us. We had to wait for the last 8.
No, I couldn't, like, my poor dog had to go out, begging me to go out. I'm like, just one more episode. I'm sure it's over after this. I don't think I
did for the last season of Better Call Saul, I did a rewatch. I rewatched the whole thing because there was a long gap because of Bob Odenkirk's heart attack.
Yeah. Right.
And I started watching, and I realized, I'm like, how the hell did I get through? I mean, it's not like it's a bad show, but the first like 5 episodes, it's really slow.
Oh, I love the first. Like, I haven't.
And I was like, but I know I liked. I mean, I liked the show from the very beginning. But I was like, I think what happens is the same thing happens at Breaking Bad. The Breaking Bad that last season, all of a sudden, it takes off and it doesn't stop. You're just amazed at the amount of shit that happens in like the last 5 hours of that show. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And Better Call Saul got to a point where all of a sudden it was just off, and it was just a lot faster than when you went to rewatch it. You're like, wow, it started very,
Okay.
They took their time. I mean, we did have Jimmy shitting on a pie, which was fun. What was that? Something cobbler.
I don't remember.
I have telling the story.
I got to do what you did, and that is I haven't seen the last season of Better Call Saul yet. And I want to watch all of Breaking Bad and then watch Better Call Saul and then watch the last season. And I want to do that within, like, I got to find time and just do that within like a month, which is a shitload of that show. Like, that's like...
Well, just get fired. Yep. And then you got plenty of time.
There you go.
I got a 22 or 23 hour flight coming up in October and then back in November, and that might be a good time for some of that. Although that's still only, probably 10 episodes.
Well, tell the pilot to circle.
Oh yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
But still, that's not a bad idea.
I'm going to need another hour. Can he just do a few laps before we land?
That is a pretty good idea, though. Maybe I will do. I'll watch The Wire. Anyway, fuck that. Nobody needs to know my travel plans. Here's what I plan to do when I fly. It's exciting podcast.
So there's big news with the Cubs. Isaac Paredes.
Yeah.
Paredes hit his first home run. He is now 7 for his last 68 this season. So heating up. Good job. Good job, Jed.
Yep.
Somebody on Twitter tried defending that. Like, I don't remember what it was.
So he was modifying his swing for Wrigley 3 weeks before he got traded? Is that what they're trying to defend?
I don't know.
I mean, look, it happens. It happens to everybody. Anybody can go 7 for 67. But
it's true.
But other big news is that there are do you know there's 3 new Iowa Cubs?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard.
Matt Shaw, James Triantos. Who's the third one?
Kevin Alcantara.
Yes. He's the one that like had injured both his legs on the same play a couple years ago, right?
No, I think that was...
Or was that Canario?
That was Lieutenant Dan.
Oh, God.
Wait, no, Gary Sneed's a Cub fan, not a Cub player.
Yeah, correct.
It was the lead character in Born on the 4th of July.
So wait a minute. Who hurt both of his legs on the same
I don't
play?
know.
It was either Canario or Alcantara. This had to have been like in winter ball of 2022 or late in the season.
Well, that was Canario. Canario had the
Okay, Canario
blew out his knee and fucked up his shoulder, right? Kind of the Ricky Gutierrez, whereas he fell because he was injured and he landed and he did even more damage. Or whatever he did. Yeah, that was him. I am interested. I've decided, even without any real evidence. I guess we saw him in the spring. I'm a big Matt Shaw fan.
Yeah, you were.
Big same.
Yeah.
I was just put him on the team. I don't care. He would have hit 199. He could have morelled it.
It's why they need to trade Horner.
That's what I was getting to. Two of those guys now I think are second basemans. I think Triantos and Shaw are second basemen now. We talked about this last week. I think after our big trade deadline spectacular. And you got to find either you're going to trade one of them or both of them, or you're going to trade Nico at some point, right? Because you got all these log jams now. You got all this talent. What are you going to do with all this talent?
I've got it. Triantos and Casey for Crochet.
Sure. I'd do it.
I don't know. Do you think Jerry Reinsdorf is going to want to pay the salary of two players?
As we're recording this, Carter Hawkins is in the booth with Boog and Joe Girardi, and I assume he's there just to gloat about the fact that Tucker Barnhart signed a minor league contract today with the Reds, which means, well, I don't know what the minor league minimum is, $100,000. The Cubs are now saving that much on Tucker's. Adds a sliding scale. The longer you've been in the minors, the more you get. And Tucker's got big league service time, but he's like, we're saving, prorated $100,000.
If that.
5 weeks.
But imagine if he makes leagues. If he makes it up, holy shit.
Yeah, they might. What if he's a September call-up for the Reds? That's 30. That's 30 days. Oh, Jed's. I wonder. Do you think Jed gets to keep the money? Whatever he didn't have to pay Tucker, it's his bonus. He gets to keep it.
It's going to be like the scene in Moneyball when Billy Bean's talking about trading for Ricardo Rincon, and he's saying when I trade him back the next year, I can keep the money. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about the, it's ironic, right? The Moneyball A's, the big in the book, obviously, because it's real, so it happened. Is not them winning the pennant or the World Series, but it's the 20-game winning streak.
Yes,
and the White Sox took their 20-game losing streak out to the Coliseum.
Oh yeah, shoot, that's where they're at now. Duh,
and extended it. So good for them.
If they only lose a couple more, they might break the record against the Cubs. Is that right?
They could.
Yes, this is a huge story for them. That
and then you saw somebody figured out that the game is at third-rate ballpark, and it's fireworks night.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if the Sox lose tonight and tomorrow in Oakland, and then lose Friday and break the major league record for longest losing streak, there will be fireworks played at their park as they're walking off the field.
That would just be so White Sox and so beautiful. I'll be there on Saturday night.
Will you?
Should be a good time. Sunday? Okay. Yeah, sounds like a good idea when there's no game.
I might not even notice that there's not a game. Boy, the crowd is smaller than I thought. Where is
it? It's on par for what the crowd they'd normally draw, though.
That's why I might not notice till the third inning.
Exactly.
Hey, when's this game start anyway?
Yeah.
It's
one of those Craig Counsell sun delays they like to have in Chicago.
I do want to say one thing about the Cubs, coming up this weekend, having to play the White Sox when they're on this, historically bad losing streak. And I see so many people like joking, oh, wouldn't it be funny if, the Cubs were the team they finally beat to end this losing streak? I almost feel like that would just be, we need that. We need that as Cub fans that are online all the time terminally, just so that every last person who thinks that this Cubs team still has some juice left in them and could make some noise or something like that can be done with it. Because if you lose even one game to this bad of a White Sox team, you don't deserve to make the playoffs.
I don't think you need to lose to this White Sox team to draw the conclusion that they don't deserve to make the playoffs.
This is true. But I'm just saying, I see it. My Twitter feed is flooded with all these, I don't know, people looking for any reason for optimism at the Cubs.
In much the same way that I think that there are no more undecided voters left who are willing to vote for Donald Trump, I don't think there's anybody left. Wait, what am I trying to say? There's nobody left who thinks the Whites or who's going to be convinced that the Cubs won't make the playoffs based on a single White Sox loss.
I'm just saying one single loss would, it should solidify it for everyone.
Yeah. All right.
Even the most optimistic, bloviating, pie in the sky Cubs fan who's probably watching the marquee feed right now with Carter Hawkins in the booth and eating it all up and taking everything he says word for word.
I was going to say, why is it every time they show Carter, Boog is talking? Boog asks a 48-minute question and Carter goes, "Yep," and then Boog asks another one.
I read a newsletter this morning that pointed out that there's 48 games left in the season. And the Cubs would have to go 29-11, or wait, that's not 48. Whatever it is.
It was 48 when that guy wrote it.
Yeah,
and he was too lazy. He just wrote 47 as of today.
There's 47 left
because I was doing math in my head.
Yeah.
I projected a conservative if they went on if they wanted a 595 clip.
Yeah.
Not only do they have to win at that clip, but then one of the three teams that were all basically flat-footed tied last night, the Marvs, the Padres, and the Mets, could only win 12 more games the rest of the year.
Right.
Probably not going to happen. But it was one of those things. The reason I wrote that was I was thinking about, it's God, what I was really thinking about was if they had swept the Cardinals, it all started with that. I was like, that would really it put a big dent in the Cardinals' playoff chances anyway, but losing all those games would have been even better. And then I thought, what if this was, instead of just the Cubs, a bad team beating up on another bad team? What if this is actually a sign that they're starting to get their shit together and they're going to win?
Baz was just talking about.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, it's funny because usually the reason you can't come back from a big deficit is the two things have to happen. You have to get hot and win, and the teams in front of you, a disproportionate number of teams have to play poorly. Yeah, and usually neither of those things are going to happen. But the National League wild card teams are such a muddled crap that's the more likely part of it that will happen, is that the teams ahead of them will not play great. But the Cubs, what hope do we really have that they're, they've played so many games like this, that this is who they are, right? It's not the idea that this was just a bad streak in the middle of a season was gone a long time ago because it just went on way too long. You just saw the rarest of all things. That's great when we do this, everybody's watching the game with us, but Isaac Paredes just singled to right field.
Oh, I didn't. I infamously do not have marquee, and therefore, I'm watching on. And then he was thrown out at second.
Yeah, because there was a throw to home plate that was late. He tried to move up to second on it, and he got thrown out.
All right.
Nobody makes more outs on the bases than the Chicago Cubs.
Well, for the year, is that right?
Yeah. Even the newest Chicago Cubs.
He catches on quick.
Yep.
All right, here's how we do this, Isak. Every throw home, you're running to draw a throw. Even if won't I be out a lot? Yes, we don't care. That's what we do. Do it. Okay, fine. Maybe that's why we score 2 runs a game on average. Do you think, guys? No?
I remember when we used to make fun of just a single player for toot blanding.
Yeah, basically the Cubs are
a team
full of toot blands and Pete Crow-Armstrong. Although
the one guy who doesn't get thrown out.
Yeah. Well, Pete never gets caught stealing, but Pete he also does some incredibly creative base running at times too.
He just takes chances. Yeah. It's all right.
But quickly back to the 3 new Iowa Cubs. I'm really worried now about what this does to Nick Madrigal's playing time.
Oh, jeez. Won't someone think of it?
Although, I guess we could make the case that they said, all right, there's in the minor league season, there's you're usually done early September. So there's a month to go. Like, this is a good chance for them to learn from Nick for a month. Did you hear? Okay, so Pete was talking about how he is trying to emulate Nick Madrigal's swing. Did you hear this?
No.
He likes Nick's the leg kick, and he's trying to do it.
Has he been doing it since I don't know, what's it been, 5 weeks that he's been hitting all right?
Well, they said that they basically don't let him do it. But they let it. The basic idea, what he has done that he took from that is, without picking his foot up, he leans back before he goes forward now. And it gets him on. He was ahead of everything. I think it was, last year he couldn't hit a fastball. And I think he overcompensated to try to get out. Don't get beat on a fastball all the time. And he realized he was getting beat by being ahead of pitches. Okay. And so it slowed him down. And he's been much better.
Okay.
But I thought it was funny. I'm like, don't. That's one guy. Don't pattern your game after Nick Madrigal, please.
The one thing that I will say that Madrigal has, this is my good deed for the day. I'm going to say something nice about Nick Madrigal. Okay. I mean, he can hit the ball. He doesn't hit it hard.
Yeah.
But he knows where it's going. He knows where his bat is all times, and he hits the ball. And so if there's a bit of a combination that you can have between hitting the ball hard and being able to put a barrel of the bat on it, it's not a bad thing. So if you're limiting yourself to not...
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
This episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Didn't file with TurboTax last year? That's in the past. Now, Taxes is getting the TurboTax app and filing your own taxes for free if you didn't file with them last year. File by February 18th. All tax forms, all 100% free. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. New filers and filers who didn't use TurboTax last year only must start and file your own taxes in-app by February 18th. Excludes TurboTax Live. Full terms at TurboTax.com.
Modeling your game after Nick Madrigal, but just simply saying, all right, here's how he puts the barrel of the bat on the ball. That may not be such a bad thing. And I also have no idea what I'm talking about. So.
I think what you're saying, allow me to try to translate.
Sure.
Like to English, it's a tough translation.
An adult-sized person with Nick Madrigal's approach could actually be successful with it.
It's a good way to look at it. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
That I think okay. Yeah. All right.
Hey, Nick, this is what it looks like when you don't swing like you're holding a piece of balsa wood.
Oh man. That's fair enough.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Nick, this is what it looks like when you have a bat that you are actually double the height of.
Nick, this is what it looks like.
Poor little Nick.
Why?
I feel so bad.
He was the 4th pick in the draft. He's got millions of dollars.
Regret to inform you all tonight, by the way, that currently the Iowa Cubs are in Omaha playing the Storm Chasers, I believe they are.
Hit by a tornado? I saw that scene in Twisters. It was terrifying.
Not exactly. Maybe that would be fitting for, what Triantos, Shaw, and Alcantara are rooting for tonight, because thus far in the fourth inning, they're a combined 0 for 4, and Matt Shaw has already made his first error in AAA.
Yeah. Where's he playing?
They have him at third base. Yep, third base, Triantos at second, Alcantara in center.
This question was asked of me, so I'm going to ask it of you, not to change the subject. But it just popped in my head, and I figured I don't
know that we're ever on a subject, so that's fine.
All right. Would you be mad, sad, or just okay or happy if Bellinger does not if Bellinger opts out? Like, do you care? Does it matter?
I thought about this I gave us a lot of thought at the deadline. It's the only thing that occupied my thoughts for hours. But I did think about it because I was like, I wonder if they could. Actually, I think what I thought about it was, I wonder if he hadn't broken his finger, if they could have actually traded him. And what is trade? I worried that the Cubs were going to settle for a lesser package just to guarantee themselves they wouldn't have to pay him next year. Although I guess it doesn't really matter. It's not like they're going anywhere. So I thought about it, and then I thought, well, what if they keep him and he stays? Is that a good thing?
Right.
And I think I've come down to say it's not bad, but I don't know that it really helps anymore.
Yeah.
I just feel like they've got more body. They've already got right and left field. They're clogged with, pretty good players, but
right.
And they've got other guys you're going to, you want to play Pete all the time. And then you need to go find a bat, like a real live big hairy man bat.
Yes.
And you got to put that guy somewhere.
Yes.
And it's like, honestly, if Cody stays, where do they put that person now?
It muddles things up.
Because your DH spot is then filled with one of those guys.
Yeah, I think Cody's looking at it as a 255, right? 2-year, $55 million deal. He would probably get that in free agency. If he were to become a free agent, right?
But he'd also be looking for something longer term then. If he were to opt out, that would be the reason.
He might get like 3 and 70, right?
Right. I mean, I think the initial decision is bare minimum, can we top what we've got? Right. And if you can say yes to that, then you're like, okay, well, we might as well try it. And if you don't think you can, then you're just going to stay. Right. Then you worry about, is it going to be 4 years or 5 years or 3 years or 2 years? But if you think bare minimum, somebody's going to pay you more than what the Cubs owe you for next year, then you might as well go get the money somewhere. But the market, he apparently didn't get any serious offers last year.
Right.
And he was coming off a good season where I know there were concerns, and we talked about this last week. I was one of the people I talked myself out of, well, he doesn't hit the ball very hard. Yeah, but, there's a 2-strike approach and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then you watch this year, and he's not hitting the ball hard again. And you kind of wonder, is he ever going to really hit the ball consistently hard again?
This is who he is. He's a perfectly fine ball player like all the rest of them.
Right. I think he does a lot of things well. Like, he's a good baseball player.
Yeah.
Even, the problem you have is the other roster around him.
Right.
In that you can't just be like, well, he'd be an upgrade in right or left field, and that's great. If he stays, who cares? He's a good player. We'll put him in left field. Now you're like, well, okay, we got our left fielder is set. Our right fielder is set.
Right.
We'd like to play we have an actual talented young player. We need to play him in center. We got another good young player, we think, at first base, and Cody. Yeah. And you're like, Cody, could you leave?
Right.
I mean, so it's kind of like this. I was when Bob Newhart died. You just got to hear all kinds of old stories, and it was famous. His best friend was Don Rickles, which seemed like the most ridiculous thing ever. That those two were best friends. And Bob was telling a story about how him and his wife and Don's wife had a dinner date set. And Don called and told him, hey, Frank might come to dinner with us. And Bob's like, oh, okay. And he hung up and he looked at his wife and he said, did you ever in your life think that you would hope Frank Sinatra would break dinner plans with you? He's like, I just want to go to dinner with Don and his wife. I don't want Frank Sinatra to come with. And that's kind of like, did you ever think you'd be like,
right?
No, Cody, that's okay. Go play for somebody else.
Like if the Cubs had a real president of baseball operations, he would sit Cody down and say, "Hey, look, you can stay in this contract, but you're getting 300 to 400 plate appearances a year because we have to give it to other players. So if you're fine with maximizing your career earnings at this, great. Stay on. We signed you to the contract. We'll pay you, but you're getting 400 plate appearances next year, if that, like at max, unless somebody gets hurt. If you really think that if you want to maximize your career, maybe go off and be a free agent. And even if you take less for a 1-year pillow contract, you at least have a chance to go to a team that can place where you can get 600 plate appearances, assuming you don't get hurt, and then you move on or run out, right? Because I think he'd get more than 255, but if that guy get $30 million a year, then you're like, oh, this might be it for you.
Yeah. I mean, the fortunate thing for Cody is the Cubs don't have the competent president of baseball operations. He's got an agent who's already like, okay, even if you don't think we can get the $30 million next year, you need to go because
that's right.
You're not. Yeah, Scott's going to tell him that.
Yeah,
you gotta go. There's not enough. You could get squeezed out of playing time, and then we're really fucked the next year trying to get a contract.
Right. Here's the other thing too. I just thought of this right now. If he gets limited on his plate appearances next season, would that maybe? How would I say this? Like, would that maybe kind of push him towards staying for the third year too?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like, if he lowers his value on the open market after next year.
That's exactly my point. If he opts into next year's contract, he might as well be opting into both. Right. Because I don't think that he'll get the playing time. Well, and which is weird to say, like to your point, Andy, like that's a weird thing to think about. Like, why wouldn't, like, because anything can happen. Like, you bring up one of these rookies and they suck, but the Cubs can have a shit ton of money to spend. They can go out there and they can get a starter, they can get a bullpen, they can get a hitter, and they have money for all of that, whether Cody stays or not. And it's like, well, where's the playing time going to come from? Especially if Machop pushes his way in, even if they trade Horner. Like there's things happening. Like, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs could look at it like, all right, we're going to get serious about this, and we want to keep Cody.
Sure.
And we're going to open a spot for him. We're going to basically be big boys and tell either Hap or Seiya, hopefully Hap, that we got to move on. Our roster doesn't work this way, and we're going to trade. Right. We're going to have to somehow make you happy and get you to waive your no trade, and we're going to open a spot for somebody. Short of that, I don't know why you would. If you're Cody, you can't stay. I don't think his option for 25 is 27.5, and his option for 26, if he stays, is 25.
Yeah, but he gets $2.5 million or whatever.
He gets 2.5 if he opts out this year, and he gets 5 if he opts out after 25.
Yeah, so that's the $30 million guaranteed or $32 million guaranteed, really. But that's sort of, I guess that's what I'm saying is that, and you mentioned it earlier, they're going to go out and get a hitter, like they have to, right? It's not a Dan. Well, I mean, who knows? But you're talking about, I don't know, $40 million coming off the books this year. Right? Because you've got Mancini's contract, you got
Tucker Barnhart's contract.
Who's?
You got Tucker Barnhart's contract coming up.
You're right.
Although maybe they'll extend him. Maybe Jed will call him with the Reds. We'd like to extend this contract, but I'm playing for the Reds. No, you'll still play for the Reds. It's just fun to pay you.
We just
keep the bad player on the Reds. Yeah, that'd be great.
You say that, but that's one of them, right? I mean, between Hendricks, that's why I said Trey Mancini's $8.5 million.
There's Hayward money that finally falls off. This is the last year of his deferred money.
Yeah, but that's only like.
I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, but you've got Hendricks, you've got those three, you got Neris coming off, you got.
Well, they got to be careful with Neris.
I was going to say Neris if he gets 60.
They keep pitching him, and his contract's going to vest. He's going to
have. All right. You know who's finally coming off the books this year? David Bodie.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
And David Bodie and Danny Jackson, I think, both come off this year.
Danny Jackson.
Does Edwin Jackson finally end this year?
No. Yeah. He's got another 10 years.
Okay.
But anyway, so my point being is, like, you're going to go out and get a hitter. You got to get a starter probably. You got to get you got to get a bullpen. There's you could see a vision off in the distance towards contending next year, but then like just Cody can't really play because you have to see what you have in some of these prospects. You got to go back to what you did even in 2015 and 2016, right? Bring up Wilson. You have to bring up these guys. You have to see what you have.
Yeah, they Dave and I talked about it during our discussion about the Orioles at the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Orioles hoarding their young players in the minors is great, but at some point they start to lose value because. Yeah. And the example that we gave was Joey Ortiz when he got traded to the Brewers. Yeah. He was 25. It was like it was almost like the Rays were like, or the Orioles were like, we got to trade Joey now. We got to find a home for him this year because he's going to be a 26-year-old at AAA, and he's too good for that. That doesn't do anybody any good.
That's what happened to Michael Busch.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to him.
Yeah, like it's an upside, and great. I'm glad the Cubs have him. Like he's great. He's good.
He's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Cubs are 18 more Hector Neris games away from guaranteeing him his salary, or 15 more games finished. So they got some runway. They can. Craig's probably figuring he's gonna get hurt. I won't even have to sit him in the bullpen. I'll just pitch him till his arm falls off, and then we won't have to worry about it.
What's his? It doesn't matter. I don't care.
$9 million. I think.
All right, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's not gonna break you, but it's like you said. It's $9 million more dollars you can spend on somebody else.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that
better not stop them from anything.
With this
he's not good enough. Do you want 36-year-old Hector Neris at $9 million after this year? No,
but it shouldn't fucking matter.
It shouldn't matter from a salary standpoint. It should from a roster standpoint.
Fine.
It should be like we don't want this fucker around next year, so let's not.
They ate $8.5 million by getting rid of releasing Mancini last year. Whatever.
It shouldn't fucking matter. But it does matter to the guy writing the checks.
Yeah, but my point is that you have so much more coming off the books anyway. Like they're not against sunken costs, right? Like I said, they did it with Mancini. They're not anti-sunken costs.
Right. But why would you sink your cost when you can see it? You don't need to sink it.
But you don't have a choice right now.
It's not like you do.
You're not going to stop pitching them.
Does it hurt you?
Well, no.
I liked how when they tried to close with Merriweather on what day was that? Friday?
Is that right? He walked
everybody.
Yes, right.
And then they had to bring Neris in with the bases loaded.
Yeah.
And you could have bet $1 million that he was going to walk the first guy, and he did. It's just like it was the worst possible. I'm sure I can just imagine counsel like, I can't believe I have to bring this fucking guy in with the bases loaded.
Actually, that was in the 8th inning though. Of that game,
right?
And then they had
trying to get a 4-out save.
Neris come out in for a 4-out save. Yes,
he got it.
He did. Maybe he's coming around. Maybe they've seen it. Maybe the pitch lab guys said, "You want to keep this guy." We finally got him. We finally got him grooved. We haven't seen anybody like this since Tommy Nance. Now we're ready to go.
I think this is the 4th podcast in a row you mentioned Tommy Nance.
I love talking about Tommy Nance.
It is kind of a funny story.
Who's going to mention someone obscure more? Is it going to be me with Barry Rosner or Andy with Tommy Nance?
Well, the reason I had Tommy Nance on the brain was the other pitcher but there were a lot of guys, but one of the guys whose performance he had been burst on the scene that year, and everybody like, ooh, look at this guy. Got traded at the trade deadline, and it's Trevor Rogers, right? The guy from the Marlins, who before he hurt his arm,
sounds right,
he really started to struggle because he couldn't stick his hand in the old honey jar before every pitch.
Oh, he was one of those?
He was one of those guys, and people were like, it's not just that he has to come back from the injury. I mean, that's part of it. He's also got to figure out how to get spin on the ball without loading crap all over his hand. That's why it had been on my mind, because people were making fun of the Orioles for that's the pitcher they decided to get. He wasn't terrible for the Marlins this year, but the Marlins are terrible. The Cubs are also, I would think, going to have to go find a catcher. Amaya's been a lot better, but can you you at least have to find you need to try to set up the situation you thought you had this year, which is a guy who can basically catch half the time if he has to with him, just in case.
Right.
The 2016 situation was probably ideal, right? You got Wilson Contreras, who was able to sort of work his way in.
Yeah.
You had
Right.
a defensive guy, sort of, and you had Montero.
Well, it's funny. I almost kind of wonder if, Amaya was from almost day one. He basically was the primary catcher, even when Jan was still there. And before it became apparent to Craig very early on that Jan was the old.
Yeah, but Amaya wasn't good for.
But no, here's what I'm going to say. I think the idea was that Jan was going to get more starts than Miguel, and instead Miguel was getting more starts than Jan. And then this idea that they needed to try to in-season revamp his swing got harder and harder because he was the guy they had to catch all the time.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so it ended up, they had to wait till they got the great Thomas Nido before they could possibly give Miguel 3 days in a row off, apparently, so that he could fix his swing. But I also wonder why it took him that long to figure out to get. He's another guy. He had the ridiculous leg kick and he couldn't get to anything, and they finally got rid of it, and he started to hit. It's like,
yeah, I don't think it took him that long to figure it out. I just think that it takes a little while to, like, you got to get confidence in your swing, like you've been doing it so long.
Yeah, and hitters have to, like, before they're going to make a big change, they have to fail so much that because otherwise you can't convince them to do it.
Right.
And he did.
That's right.
He failed a lot.
Like, I don't think there's no catcher to go out and get, right? Anybody who's got a really good offensive catcher is keeping him, unless you all of a sudden think that the Braves are going to give up Sean Murphy or something up from his down year. They're just not a catcher to go get.
No, what they need to do is get one of those deals like the Brewers got, where
you just Sean Murphy, that was the Sean Murphy,
where you just get handed a catcher.
Yeah, but the Braves gave up Shea. Wait, was that the Shea Langler's deal, or am I getting them? That maybe the Matt Olson was I don't remember. But they gave up Shea Langler's, and that
was for Olson.
Yeah, and he's fine.
Yeah.
So you got to there's just not catchers just aren't available. It's like getting a number one defenseman in hockey, just not available.
No, but what you don't need, you need a guy who you think could be a low end everyday catcher, though, right? Like a guy you could see because you can't trust that. You need a guy who, if it's like he's going to end up having to play 100 games, you got to get a catcher you think can catch on. If Miguel sucks again next year, you're not going to just keep running him out.
But there's no what I'm saying. What I'm suggesting is that Miguel Amaya might be as good as you get for 100 games. Like you need to get a backup catcher, granted.
Yeah.
And you know what? Frankly, either Christian Betancourt's been fine, right? He hit the big home run the other day. Betancourt's fine. Nito was fine. Like you're not getting a 300 hit. Like you're not going to get.
No,
I was going to
available.
Right. What I'm saying is you can't just do we need a backup catcher. We need a guy, like David Ross was a backup catcher, a guy that was he's going to catch 50 games for us tops, and we're fine with that.
Sure.
You need to shoot higher than that because you don't have the luxury of, you don't know that your number one catcher is really a number one catcher. This guy may end up having to split games evenly with him, and you can't have both of them hitting like Jan and Miguel were. But you also, I agree, if I were the Cubs, and not that there's a guy to get, but you've got other things you need to find.
Yeah.
I'm cautiously optimistic that Miguel is a frontline catcher. Maybe not a star, but a good catcher. But he was so bad for so long this year that you can't just go into next year and say, all right, we got that solved. Because there's no way you know that you got that solved. You may think you do, but there's no way you can be that confident in it. That's what they can't just go patch a true backup catcher this year because they don't know for sure that the young guy they've got could really handle it.
To me, with the catching situation, I don't know. I feel like the veteran backup guy may be the route to go just because, you're going into next year, you're more than likely going to have two relatively young catchers on the roster as well. You're going to have Miguel Amaya still there, more than likely. You're more than likely going to have Moises Ballesteros come up at some point. I think
if
that
Moises
like
Ballesteros is a catcher, I'm the next Bulls center.
That's I'm very.
It's what he's playing right now.
I'm very hopeful he can hit it. It's just he doesn't look like a catcher.
It took them. I don't know what 2 months of Kyle Schwarber to realize he's not a catcher, and I bet Kyle Schwarber is more athletic than Ballesteros.
He's
the one guy
Moises
who's
is
available.
He's kind of he's Engelberg from Bad News Bears. He can't button his shirt. He's got he's got the candy bar in his glove.
Hey, do you remember that guy on the Twins? Yeah, remember the guy in the Twins?
Williams.
I don't know. He used to play all over the field, and he was like 5'6".
Oh, what was his name?
Williams Astudillo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Danny Johnson's available. All right. Problem solved.
Williams was
Elias Diaz.
Williams was 5'9", 225. Like Morel was 135 until this year. They don't update the weights. Williams' height and weight was done when he was 12, and they never updated it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can have there are good bad body catchers, right? I mean, we know that can be a thing. But the Cubs' recent history of positionless prospects gives me pause. You know, they're not all Alejandro Kirk, although he's not doing much this year either.
Yeah, I got to be honest. The free agent market this year looks like the Cubs are going to get what they get.
Well,
they have what they have.
Well, then the blueprint's out there. Got to do.
Well, Martin Maldonado's still out there.
There we
Sox,
go.
Winless.
That's the best guy. See?
17 of these losses. Yeah, Maldonado got cut 17 games.
You know what's going to happen now, Andy? They're going to sign him before Friday night. Bring him back. Period. And then he can be the manager that replaces Pedro Grifol when they fire him.
They should just bring him back as a player manager. Exactly. Well, since you guys, I think it's on Max, right? Yeah, it's on Max. There's a Pete Rose documentary on Max.
Oh yeah,
saw that.
A 4-parter.
I have not seen it.
One part would have been fine.
It's what?
One part would have been fine. Like the first hour you watch it, it's you get to see you learn some stuff about young Pete that maybe you didn't know. All the other Reds hated him because of the Charlie Hustle was like a derogatory nickname. They're just like, look at this fucking Charlie Hustle asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big chip that he carried around on his shoulder. He was the hometown kid. He's from Cincinnati,
right?
And playing for the Reds and the veteran team that didn't like him. But Pete's an asshole. Whether you feel sorry for him, whether you feel like he should be in the Hall of Fame or not, it's like, who gives a shit at this point? I mean,
also should probably be in jail too. If we're being honest,
what's the argument for him being in the Hall of Fame?
Just his stats. That you can't, the bullshit about you can't tell the story of baseball without Pete Rose. Well, the Hall of Fame is two things. It's a museum, and he's all over the fucking museum. And then there's the plaques of the guys who are in there, and he's not on there. And that seems to be about the right balance, I think.
Right.
He literally agreed to a lifetime ban. He didn't know Paul Giamatti's dad was going to die, but he did. Still, one of the most crazy underrated things is that people don't. Every time you see Paul Giamatti, people don't remind you that his dad was Bart Giamatti.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there aren't that many people for whom Bart Giamatti is a household name. First of all,
Bartlett Giamatti. Are you kidding? You don't talk about him constantly.
You never got a Major League Baseball from the early '90s.
I do.
With his signature on it.
I have one over there with Bartlett Giamatti right now. But Pete claimed that him and Bart really had an agreement that it was really a 1-year deal. Wink, wink, wink. And Faye Vincent's like, bullshit. That was a 1-year deal. You accepted the lifetime ban, and maybe at some point Bart had basically told Pete that he would have to change everything about his life off the field. And then maybe they would consider it. And Pete was still doing the same shit. He was going to Vegas. He was a greeter at a casino. He was doing all this shit. And he was never going to get back. And then he blames it all on Giamatti dying. He says otherwise he would have been it.
Like, he would probably have made much less money in his life if he was to get into the Hall of Fame.
Like, if he had been like an actual first ballot Hall of Famer,
right?
Yeah, like he would have been expected to be. Exactly. He should have honestly what he should have done, and I'm probably was going to be harder if he wasn't still connected, but he never. If what he says is true, that he never actually gambled when he was a player, and that he only did it when he was a manager, and he never did it on the Reds, he never should have went into managing, and he should have just became like a professional sports gambler in his post-playing career, and then that way, everything illegal that he was doing was, not while he was affiliated with Major League Baseball.
So didn't the whole thing about him not betting on his own team get debunked? Like, I think it was like he had bet on his own team.
Right. His story evolves. First, it was when he first got banned, he insisted that he never bet on baseball at all. He bet on other stuff, but he never bet on baseball. And then he did that forever. Like, that went all the way up to they did like the all millennium team in 1999 in Atlanta, and he got special dispensation to go out on the field because he was banned from that. And Jim Gray tried to get him to admit on the field that he bet and he wouldn't do it. And then later he wrote, when he finally admitted he bet on baseball, he wrote a book, and he wrote it in the book. That was when he finally admitted he bet on baseball. And he claimed he only did that as a manager, and nobody around the Reds believes that he wasn't still doing it. That he wasn't doing it when he was a player, and he was a player manager too. That was the other thing.
Right.
Is the title of the book "If I Did It"?
Basically. And then it's funny that there's a great scene in the documentary, but I've seen it before, where Jimmy the Greek is, I don't know, he was sick or he had to take a week off, and who do you think CBS got to fill in to do the picks on the pregame show? Pete Rose.
No.
He was a player, a current big league player, and he was picking football games, and everybody thought, oh, that's just for fun. Yeah, sure, that was just for fun. Yeah, then there's a whole thing about the 14-year-old girl that he was banging when he was with the Reds. And
I didn't. Yeah. Whoa, really?
Yeah, they talk about that. And he gets really mad and won't talk about that. And he claims, no, she was 17.
Okay, that doesn't make it any better.
17 in Ohio when he did it would have made it legal. So he claims she was 17.
To be fair, if he was from Cincinnati, he might as well have been from Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, you fall into the water and you end up in Kentucky.
Right. But that was sort of the other argument, is that he never bet on his team to lose.
Yes,
it was
that was
always
the other
to
thing.
win.
Right. He still insists that. And so,
but that doesn't.
Well, then that brings up the question. Then, okay, what about the days you don't bet?
Right.
That's a signal. Right. If you really stick to that, then that's a signal to gamblers that they should bet against the Reds that day, because Pete's going to do you a solid and he's going to make sure. It's also the idea then that, if your manager is hell bent on winning that game that day and burns through his bullpen because he has to win that day because he's going to lose a shitload of money.
Yes.
The integrity of baseball thing is out the window.
Yeah, my buddy was trying to make that argument that he would manage differently, but he never made the bullpen argument. I'm like, wait a second. The argument you're supposed to be making, or that you should be making, is the bullpen argument. Yeah. Like, when it burns to the bullpen, then what do you do the next 2 days?
Yeah. Well, was it him or Lou that created like the Nasty Boys?
That was Lou.
The three. Okay.
Now Lou did he did take over the Pete Rose Reds though. Right. That was the team he won the World Series with.
Yep.
That should have been Pete's.
Yep.
Pete should have been managing that team.
Well, I just think thinking of having like this, trio of elite relievers that you kind of pitch strategically, that feels the sort of thing that a gambling manager would do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. It was basically, for people who don't remember the 1990s Reds, just picture, it was basically like, you get down to the seventh inning, game's over, because they had the 1990 equivalent of Porter Hodge, Hector Neris, and Julian Merriweather. Game over.
I'm sure Marge Schott was really cognizant of who had what appearance bonuses, like Hector Neris has.
No, she was just worried about who had the whitest sheets.
That too.
Yeah. And about flying Eric Davis home from a World Series game with a lacerated kidney.
When what? Oh, with a lacerated kidney?
Yeah. She didn't want to get a plane for him.
Jeez.
And that's when she referred to him as, I'm not going to say it because even a podcast can get banned, but $1 million something is what she referred to Eric Davis as. Yes. Yeah, the Reds, that's quite a franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and think about it, their first bout of success was because of another team intentionally tanking games.
Yeah, for the longest time, for the first
Black Sox,
50 years of their existence, their only World Series win was the one that the White Sox threw. Like, there's a whole thing about that, though. There are people who claim that they have proof that those same Reds, I think they lost 2 games in the series, and that they threw those. Like, it was a battle of who could throw games better, the White Sox or the Reds, because Charlie Comiskey deservedly takes a bunch of shit. The reason that the players were taking money from gamblers is because he wasn't paying them for shit. Well, none or at least very few baseball teams were. And gambling was so prevalent back then that, there was talk that the Cubs were in the World Series in 2018.
Yep. I was just going to bring that up.
That they threw at least one of those games for gambling.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So apparently it was not all that. That's why they finally went and hired Mountain Landis to be the commissioner. It wasn't just the Black Sox; it was all over baseball. But he was going to make an example of them, and he did. So, and he was a real piece of shit too. But
I think he's also the reason why the color barrier was a thing as long as it was.
Yep. Yeah, he's quite a guy.
Yeah.
Well, him and Cap Anson.
Yep.
Anti-cop.
That too.
But the worst thing, though, in baseball history was still Marge Schott rubbing her dog's hair all over Lou for good luck before games. Shotzi. Remember Shotzi?
Yeah.
The St. Bernard that she would let shit on the field before games, and then she'd clip some of his hair and rub it all over Lou.
The worst thing in baseball was the Cardinals winning the 2006 and 2011 World Series.
They didn't do either of those things. Those World Series were canceled for lack of interest.
Lack of interest.
It's like how some people view Finland, that it doesn't actually exist.
Finland? What the hell's wrong with Finland?
There's some conspiracy theory out there.
Like, is that the same people who think that Stevie Wonder can see?
Probably.
Shaq's one of them, right?
Eddie Murphy always used to joke about it. I don't know if Eddie really thinks it's true, or he just likes the joke.
Doesn't Shaq tell the story of Stevie Wonder in an elevator? I don't remember. I don't remember if he pushed the right button or if he shook his hand or something weird. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, you could probably Google it. Google it out there. Those of you still listening.
Yeah. One of the great Saturday Night Live little videos ever was the spoof on the Canon commercial, where there was the tennis player who the guy's taking, the professional photographer's taking pictures of the tennis player, and then they switch, and the tennis player is taking pictures of the photographer playing tennis because the camera's so easy to use that even an amateur can use it. And they did one where Stevie Wonder was playing tennis and the guy was taking pictures of him, and then they switched. And of course, Eddie Murphy's playing Stevie, and the pictures are of the sky and a foot, and it's so easy. Even Stevie Wonder could use it.
Of course.
The tennis was good too, but yeah.
Oh, that's pretty funny. That's pretty good.
All right. Well, this was our most focused podcast ever, I think.
Absolutely.
This was a good one. But it's proof we can talk about anything, and we will. So that's good.
Yeah.
True.
We contain multitudes.
We're like an onion. We have many layers.
We're multiversal.
And we stink and we'll make you cry.
Also that. Just like our Cubs.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Many of us have herpes.
No, I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. I mean, got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome.